Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. Now Suta Goswami speaks. Remember, the narrations of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam are recited in 3 places. First place is Haridwar, on the bank of Ganges, by Maitreya Muni to Dhruva Mahārāja. Second place is also on the bank of Ganges, called Sukara Khetra, by Sri Sukadev Goswami to King Parikshit Maharaj. Third place is forest of Naimisharanya near Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, India, where 88,000 rishis headed by Saunaka and recited by Sri Suta Goswami. So here Suta Goswami says, when Dhruva Mahārāja heard from Maitreya Muni about how Dhruva Mahārāja left this world on a palanquin, celestial Vimana aeroplane, guarded by 2 messengers of Lord Vishnu, Nanda and Sunanda, to the spiritual world, Dhruva Mahārāja was overwhelmed with devotion. His heart melted. Tears fell from his eyes for the Supreme Lord. He asked Maitreya Muni, I heard from you that Narada Muni sang 3 verses about Dhruva Mahāraja's glories in the assemblage sacrificial arena of Prachetas, glorifying the Supreme Lord's pastimes. Glorification of the Supreme Lord's pastimes and glories of devotee. Both are done simultaneously. One cannot do only one. Get maximum benefit. Has to be both. I would like to know in whose dynasty the Prachetas were born and where they performed fire sacrifice and why. O Gurudeva, please tell me, Manye Mahābhāgavatam Naradam Deva Darshanam Yena Prokta Kriya Yoga Paricharya Vidhir Hare. Narada Muni is not ordinary devotee. He is a pure devotee. Mahābhāgavata devotee. Because he saw the Supreme Lord face to face. Not only that, he sees often the Supreme Lord, meets and talks with him. That's why Narada Muni's name is counted among Mahābhāgavata devotees like Sanak, Sanandana, Sanatana, Sanat Kumar or Lord Shiva, like that. His name is counted. Not only that, Narada Muni wrote Process of Worship, a book, process of performing purificatory activities such as fire sacrifice, deity installations, and all that kind of activity, how to do puja to the Lord deities. The name of his book is Narada Pancharatra. The process mentioned in that is called Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga means process of deity worship and process of purificatory ceremonies. Please tell me, Yasta Devarshina Tatra Varanita Bhagavat Katha Mahyam Sustrusave Brahman Kartena Chastumarhati. O Gurudeva, O great saintly person, Narada reached in the assembly fire sacrifice being performed by Prachetas. He reached there and glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead as pastimes, transcendental pastimes. Can you please tell me Which pastimes he glorified there? How many pastimes of the Lord are there? Please tell me, I'm your faithful disciple. I want to hear them all. Hearing this, Maitreya Muni replies. Maitreya Muni says, "O Vidura, when Dhruva installed his son Utkala as a coronation king in his kingdom and left for forest, Utkala did not have any interest to rule and hold the kingdom. Because Utkala was always in the thoughts of the Supreme Lord. He did not want anything to do with material things. Material desires, material affinities were burnt in the fire of Yoga-Agni. He burnt the desire, material desires in the fire of yoga, yogic fire. He would see the Supreme Lord everywhere and see everything in the Lord and see the Lord in everyone's heart. He was absorbed in thoughts of Lord Kṛṣṇa. That's why he would not involve in any activities, including the ruling of the kingdom. Seeing the detachment of Utkala from ruling affairs, the ministers of him thought Utkala to be unfit for the job, royal job. Then they conjointly appointed the son of Brahmi. Ila and Brahmi were two wives of Dhruva. The first wife was Brahmi and second wife was Ila. Ila was the daughter of air god. So Ila's son was appointed first. Utkala was Ila's son. So they appointed now Brahmi's son, thinking he would be good ruler. Brahmi's son was Vatsara, and now he became the king. He produced Swarchitti, six sons. He produced six sons, among which Pushparna was the eldest. And Pushparna produced three sons later on. Among three, Vyasti was the eldest. Vyasti was the son of Swarteja. Whose wife was Akuti and produced one son. His name was Chakshusa. He became later on Manu, Chakshusa Manvantara, one Manu. This Chakshusa produced 12 sons, among which Ulmuka was the eldest. We are talking about eldest because dynasty usually carried by eldest one. Ulmuka produced 6 sons, among which Anga was eldest. And Anga later became the king and married the daughter of Mrityu, Sunitha. Mrityu personified had a daughter whose name was Sunitha, and King Anga married with her. Had no children. King Anga had produced a son due to the help of Brahmins, fire sacrifice, and his name was Vena. He was very mischievous, wicked son. His mischief behavior disturbed the king and the kingdom, became unruly. all the sages combined came there. The nature of sages and devotees, real devotees, is their words are very strict. Strict words they speak. So by cursing him, they killed King Vena. After Vena was killed, and there was no king because Vena did not produce any son yet. So there was no king without a ruler, robbers and dacoits and thieves. Thus, mismanagement in the kingdom, and everybody became very unhappy, miserable. Thus there was a chaos in the kingdom. Seeing chaos in the kingdom, sages and saintly people came there to the palace and saw Mrityu's daughter Sunitha had saved the dead body of King Vena in the oil. They had a tub of oil filled up and put the body inside and preserved the body that way. They took out the body and uprooted or severed one arm of him and churned his body. From there came the original ruler, King Prithu, the manifestation of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Prithu was the manifestation of Lord Kṛṣṇa, who became the king. When Vidura heard this, he asked Maitreya Muni, O Gurudeva, Anga was a very saintly king, very pious by nature. How come he produced a mischievous, wicked son? Due to which King Anga had to abruptly leave his kingdom. Vidura wanted to know. The duty of Guru is to clear the doubts of his disciples. Duty of disciples are to ask spiritual doubts to the spiritual master, Guru. Material questions should not be asked to the Guru. Oh, I don't have a son. Can you help me to have a son? I got a court case. Please help me to destroy the court case. My son is in trouble. I want to know how can he get Viralam. All material questions should not be asked to the Guru. So, Dhruva Mahārāja asked the saintly king, how come produced an unwanted, bad behavior son who was cruel by nature? What kind of offenses King Anga had committed to experience the mischievousness of his son? And what kind of offenses King Vena's son committed? So the sages and saintly people had to use their strict words and curse him with death. Vidura wanted to know. King Vena became a king, and king not supposed to be punished for his personal problems. How come? The sages, they knew this rule and they punished. He wants to know. Actually, it is a fact. Personal problem of the ruler should not be recognized by the citizens. Should not that ruler be condemned due to his personal mischiefs. Personal. For personal. Navadheya prajapala prajabhir aghavanapi. Aghavanapi. Aghavan means, I will tell you. Yadaso lokapalanam vibhartyo jaksvatejasa. Aghavanapi means is sin. If he commits an obnoxious sin. Oh, great sage, Maitreya Muni, Gurudeva, you know all the scriptures. And The sages and saintly people also knew the scriptures. And they know that a king, a ruler, cannot be punished for his personal sins. If he committed an obnoxious, abominable sin, cannot be punished. How come they punished him with death? What was that sinful deed that King Vena committed for which they rewarded such a punishment? When person becomes a ruler and rules, at that time, the rulers of the planet, those who preside as rulers of the planet, their potency comes and sits in their ruler. Why they punished him with death? Oh, great sage, Gurudeva, you know past, present, and future. You are expert in scriptural knowledge. Please be merciful unto me and explain me about son of Sunitha, King Vena, and his bad deeds. I am your faithful disciple. I would like to know. Please explain it to me. Hearing this, Maitreya Muni said, O Vidura, once King Anga, father of Vena, decided to perform a great horse sacrifice. To perform a sacrifice, he needs a presiding priest, the performers of the sacrifice. So he invited many qualified Brahmins to make arrangements. And he invited many sages and great saintly people and pure Brahmins to participate as a witness in the sacrifice. They started performing sacrifice with proper mantras, with proper pronunciations. But when they would do Swaha, the demigods would not come to take their shares from the sacrifice. One should not be egotistic, thinking he is a pure devotee, he don't need to perform sacrifice. Sacrifices are of two kinds. One is to please the Supreme Lord, another is to please the demigods. When you perform fire sacrifice to please the God, Lord, there some share goes to the demigods because they create all ingredients. Every ingredients used, including wood, in the fire sacrifice is created by demigods. So they also take little tax. Those who perform fire sacrifice just to please the demigods, God does not take a share, and demigods don't take share, they take everything. That's why devotees don't perform fire sacrifices to please demigods. When Brahmins, presiding priests were performing fire sacrifices and demigods did not come there, Brahmins wondered why demigods are not coming. We are chanting proper mantras with proper pronunciation, offering everything required in the sacrifice. Why it is so? So they were in anxiety. Then they told the king, O king, even though we are doing the best, still the demigods are not coming to accept their shares. You or we, none of us have any offenses committed against the demigods, still they are not coming here. We want to know why. Maitreya Muni says, hearing this, the king became upset. And with the permission of the presiding priests, the Brahmins, because when you take sankalpa, a vow to perform sacrifice, vow means sankalpa. When you take sankalpa like this, then you follow the priests not yourself, not anybody else. You cannot even speak right, like speak to anyone unless so very necessary, like that. So king kept quiet and was very upset. Then he took permissions from the presiding priest to speak, and he stood up and spoke to the sages and saintly people who were present there as a witness. He spoke to them. Oh, participating members, I have not committed any sin. Please tell me why the demigods are not coming to accept their shares from the sacrifice. What offense I have committed? So the demigods are ignoring my fire sacrifice. Hearing this, the members, participating members, sages and saintly people, they spoke conjointly. O king, you have not committed any offense in this life, no sins with you. But there are sins and offenses from previous life. That's why you don't have a son in this life. Those who don't have a son in this life, they are understood to have committed some kind of sin or misdeed in their past life, offense, to have no son in this life, like that. This is normally thought. O king, may all auspiciousness fall upon you. We recommend that you first perform a sacrifice to obtain a son. It is called Putresti Yagya. Performing fire sacrifice with the desire to have a son. When you will perform your fire sacrifice to have a son, Lord Sri Hari, Lord Kṛṣṇa will appear in your fire sacrifice and will fulfill your desire to have a son. Surely it will happen. And when you have a son and then you perform this sacrifice which you were doing just now, then demigods will surely come and accept their shares. Hearing this, king requested his presiding priests to do so. The presiding priests performed arrangement and performed the fire sacrifice with the goal of obtaining one son. So Sunita, the wife of Anga, was invited in the fire sacrifice. So she came, she sat down there, and then mantras were chanted. When the king was given the plate filled with purodasa to offer it to the Supreme Lord, king stood up having purodasa in his hands to offer to the Supreme Lord. I explained this previously. What is purodasa? Purodasa is a mixture of 3 ingredients: dry roasted chapati flour, normal chapati flour, dry roasted, when cooled down, mixed with sugar powder and some ghee. That is called purodasa. In fire sacrifice, purodasa is a very important ingredient, and that is offered to the Supreme Lord. So when king stood up to offer it to the Supreme Lord, Lord accepted his offering and subtly blessed him to fulfill his desire, that he would get his desires to be fulfilled. Then mantras were carried on chanting, correct? Carried on, continuing mantra chanting and swaha swaha, sacrifice. From there, a nicely decorated with ornaments, a personality appeared. In his hands had a bowl full of sweet rice. Sweet rice is rice boiled with milk and mixed with sugar. that is called sweet rice. He had a bowl full of sweet rice in his hand, and presiding priests, the performers, told the king to make a cup out of joint hands. He made a joint palm, made into a cup, and extended his arm towards that personality who appeared from the fire sacrifice pit, burning fire sacrifice pit. And he turned over his bowl into the hand of the king. And by the orders of the presiding priests, the king smelled the sweet rice and gave it to his wife to eat it. So Sunita ate that sweet rice. That sweet rice was blessed with a desire fulfilling to have a son. So when she copulated with her husband, next time, she became pregnant and produced a son. Remember this. Anga's wife Sunita is a daughter of death personified Mrityu Devata. So that dynasty of Mrityu is with bad, cruel activities, undesirable ways. So this newly born son developed the qualities of his maternal grandfather Mrityu. Maternal grandfather and fraternal grandfather. Father's father is called grandfather, and mother's father is also called grandfather in English. But that's why we say maternal grandfather. The baby who is born newly, he had those qualities of maternal connection, dynasty, lineage. So later on, his name was given as Vena. When he grew up, he would take bow and arrow and go to jungle and kill innocent, harmless, non-ferocious animals with cruelty. Cruelly, he would hunt and kill like a hunter the normal, unharmful animals in the jungle, like deer, like hare, rabbits, those ferocious animals, no. When he would return home and go back again and kill so many animals, the citizens found out due course of time that when he would return and say, oh, here is a cruel Vena, here is cruel Vena, they will cry out. They will cry out, scream out, here is cruel Vena coming, oh, cruel Vena. Everybody. So one day, king also found out that every citizen is talking loudly, screaming out, cruel Vena is coming. Here comes a cruel Vena, like that, something like that. And when he would go to play with the same kind of children, same age, some boys, some of them he would kill like he's killing an animal. He was so merciless. So king was very disturbed with him. Finding wretched behavior of his son, the king wanted to reform him from bad to good. He tried every remedy, but he could not reform his son, make him into a good boy. With this, king was very disturbed, very upset. So aggrieved he was. All the time he would think, why I got a son? Why? Better to have no son than have such a son. There are some greatly fortunate people who don't have any sons. They are called fortunate people. King is thinking. Because having a son whose deeds are very bad, disturbing, is to have no son. Those who have wicked son, their good fame is destroyed. The neighbors have quarrel because sun goes and disturbs them and they establish quarrels. And if they're pious, because of his impious deeds, pious parents go to hell. Pious parents go to hell because of the impious deeds of the son. Son is impious. And parents always remain in anxiety, remain upset, blood pressure increases to them. Therefore, who is that person who will crave to have a son just in name only? No one. Better to have no son than have a bad son, like Duryodhana or Bena, like that, something like that. If son is good, then moha maya, attachment to family life, never ceases. Better to have a bad son than have a good son. The king thinks himself. And he says openly, Kadapatyam varam manne sadapatya chucham padat nirvidyet gruhan martyo yat klesha nivaha gruha. He says, better than a good son is a bad son. Because if you have a bad son, you are in anxiety, you suffer and grieve so much. So it is easy for you to leave the home, become detached, and go for perform tapasya. But if you have a good son, then you think, yeah, your son is obedient, he listens to you, he's doing very well, he's educated, he got a job, now we have to marry him, now we have to see grandchildren, and they're very nice. Moha Maya, the tie to birth and death, does not cease. You cannot give up. Very difficult. It's not possible to give up. Thinking with grief, king would not even sleep at night, all the time, in anxiety. One day, he decided to leave. So when everybody fell asleep, Sunitha was sleeping a deep sleep. Quietly, king woke up, and quietly, nobody knew when he left the forest and entered in the jungle. When morning came, Sunitha did not find her husband, and not in the palace. Nowhere he was found. The ministers were in anxiety. They invited some Brahmins along with the ministers, sent them to search for the king. And news spread everywhere. All the sages and saintly people gathered in the palace. The ministers and Brahmins were searching in the forest. They found nowhere, and they returned and narrated the news of not finding the king to the present sages and saintly people. They were all not happy, and they selected Vena as king, having no other option. Thank you very much.